Good evening, everyone. My name's B.U. down from BeaBop Productions, and also I'm a Zen member. And I want to welcome you to this event called In Their Shoes. For me, it's about marking the Holocaust, marking Holocaust Memorial Day, and it's also about trying to learn more about what happens when somebody decides to eradicate a whole bunch of people. And in my head, and the question in my head is, why do we seem to do this again and again as a human race to people just because we feel that we do not want them or like them? I don't understand it. So this event today is about exploring some of those issues and also bringing up some questions and bringing those questions up in a safe place where we can have this open discussion and finding out from some amazing people from different walks of life about what Holocaust is. And I was quite interested when I found out what that Holocaust actually means, sacrifice. And I was thinking, that sounded like a dichotomy to me in terms of how can we call this Holocaust when it means sacrifice? So does it mean that that people are sacrificed in order to do what? I don't understand. So I want to welcome Bennet Arron, who is our host for this evening, and he will introduce the rest of the panel. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much indeed. Thank you for coming and supporting this. Before I introduce the panel to you, I'll tell you a bit about myself. My name is Bennet Arron. By profession, I'm a writer and a comedian, honestly. In fact, I'm the only Jewish-Welsh comedian on the circuit, which is quite odd. What I'm going to do, I'm going to introduce the panel to you, and we're going to talk about how we feel on the subject and the experience we've had, and I'll tell you my own little later, but first I want to introduce you to each person as we go along. Sitting next to me is Tom Douce Jr., who is of dual heritage to both white and Caribbean parents. His father was on the Windrush, which was the first boat from the Caribbean that arrived in the UK in 1948. Tom Jr. was born in 1955. Oh, you look very good. And started working in the family business from the age of 8 to the present day. Tom is an avid collector of over 1,000 books, with a lot of them specializing in his personal passion, which is trolley buses, which he inherited from his mum, that were in service in the UK until the early 70s. Tom has traveled to over 74 countries over 25 years. I'm assuming not on a trolley bus. We'll find out. He is also a self-taught photographer, documenting his love of different types of transport and places which he feels could lose its name or identity as the landscape grows and infrastructure rebuilds and changes. His travels include a trip to Auschwitz in 2013, which made a huge impact on his life, and photographs of which we will be seeing. Some of the photos were part of his first public exhibition at the Sweet Like Cocoa Festival last October. So please welcome Tom. Next to Tom, we have Michael Douce. Michael is the lead Roma advocacy worker for Roma Community Care. He is an experienced support community and advocacy worker, enthusiastic to see change in Derby. Michael is Roma, his mother is Slovakian and father is Czech. And Michael has been in Derby for 7 years, working in the community and in schools. Michael wants to empower the Roma community, which has been for centuries discriminated against and killed. Michael comes into contact with about 4,000 people every month, including a lot via their Facebook page. So please welcome Michael. Next to Michael is G-Man, who is a DJ, broadcaster, writer, and drummer, amongst other things. He is also a life coach, philosopher, and a strategist. He has done a spot of everything so that he can give something back to the community. His community, which he'll tell us about later, is all about Zen. So please welcome G-Man. Next to G-Man is Marissa's helper, and that's Marissa herself, and Marissa has written this, which I will read to you. Marissa has written, "I'm a dreamer, a writer, and a mouthy poet. I have cerebral palsy, which for me means I need assistance to do everything in daily life, including assistance to speak. I'm a disability equality trainer and I'm part of a training team called One for All, which at the beginning in 2003 focused on inclusion in education. We have now much a broader focus. As a disabled young woman who can't talk on my own, I decided to start a group called Hobnobs to reduce the isolation of both non-disabled young people and young people who can't talk with each other. Several non-disabled young people have made friendships with young people who can't talk and have changed the way they see disabled people. I host a monthly Quaker writing group at my home and have a collection of prose and poetry written mostly in my teenage years called Taking the Time, which is published by Inclusive Solutions. So please welcome Marissa. Each of us will talk, as I said, and then there will be questions from you, which we can answer together or individually. The first thing I want to do is to turn to you to ask you about the photographs. First of all, what made you visit Auschwitz, and what made you want to photograph it when you were there?
Before I went to Auschwitz, I went to Majdanek, which is in Poland also, in 1995. And the reason why I went, obviously got an interest or fascination in European history. And of course, it's a big part of, it's also shaped how Europe is now, thankfully a peaceful one. I also had a feeling that I had relatives that died there. And walking around, and when I left, I also had a feeling that relatives that did the killing also. And then, you know, sort of thinking about things, and then I decided to go to Auschwitz as well for that reason, because through Auschwitz is probably the most infamous of them all as well. And I like traveling a lot, as you know, so I thought I'd go to Poland and go to Auschwitz as well, so that was the reason behind it.
And did you do research into finding about family members that could have been?
No, because he said I was working in a shop. I've just recently retired, so I've got more time now, so the family history is something I'm going to have a look at. It's one of those funny things to think you had relatives that died there was the worst feeling, but then to have this feeling that you probably got relatives that also did the killing, it's a bit of a strange thing, and for a long time it sort of bothered me, and I think I probably need to look at that and probably made mind to think, well, is it true, isn't it? It might not be.
But where did it come from? Why did you have these thoughts?
So like a lot of thoughts, I honestly don't know.
Right,
I can't
just
say.
The feeling you had, or?
Yeah, the feeling I had for a long time before I went, that I had relatives that died there. But then going around Majdanek, I have to say, I was glad I went, but I wish to God I hadn't. Even still now, nearly 19 years on, it's still a horrible feeling, because I was there probably about 3 hours. On my own, there wasn't many people, it was a beautiful summer's day, but it felt quite dark. And when I walked in, the first thing I saw was a moratorium, and under it said, beneath this pile of soil is actually 360,000 people. And I thought, I didn't know whether to carry on going around. And I thought, well, I've come all this way, I might regret not looking around. And then when I was walking around, I started to feel these people talking to me. Tell the world, don't let it happen again, don't forget us. And I said to myself, I won't forget you. And the other thing I noticed as well, I didn't see any birds, which I've heard people say that. Yeah. Another strange thing was being somewhere that was now so quiet, so peaceful, and the people living across the road, and just, you know, a couple of miles away, quite a nice city. It was just sort of a strange thing, and then walking around, looking at where the people used to sleep in very small beds. And then you start things like where the crematorium was, and then you can walk around at your own pace. I walk around actually anti-clockwise, no particular reason. And the way I'm glad I did, because the last two buildings I came to, one had, well, buildings, about 800,000 pairs of shoes or thereabouts. And the very last building I came to, there were people coming out, a lot of them were in tears, people that had probably, I would say, lived during, sorry about that. And these people coming out in tears, and they look like the sort of people who probably lived during the war. And when I went in this building, I found out why, because in there was one of the furnaces. So, in a way, I was glad that was the last one, because if that was the first one I'd come to, I don't know if I could have carried on, because that was really, really awful.
No, I'm sure. Can I, sorry, I think we're going to have to share a microphone. Can I ask, who here has actually been to Auschwitz? Is anybody in the room? You've been. It's two things you mentioned that I had the same thing when I went. What happened with me? I was actually working. I was doing a gig in Poland, in Krakow, and I didn't realize how close it was. And somebody said, you know, it's a 2-hour bus ride away. So obviously I went. And even on the bus journey, I was thinking to myself, because it's a really old bus. You'd have loved the bus. It was great. It was a really old bus, and I thought to myself, oh, gosh, this is, you know, what an awful journey. And I thought, what am I thinking? What an awful journey. At least I've got a return ticket. But the one thing that I noticed immediately, which is something you picked on, somebody had told me this, and I thought it was just an urban myth about the birds. And I promise you, as I got off the bus, I saw a flock of birds flying towards the camp, flying towards us. I thought, well, there we go. It's obviously an urban myth. They're the birds. They're the flying. And they stopped just outside the gate. They all went down, huge flock of birds, all went down to the grass, started eating the grass. They went up, and they flew back the other way. And the hairs on the back of my neck just stood up. It was the most incredible thing. And the whole time I was there, no bird flew over. And I also went anti-clockwise, again, purely coincidental, and that was the last room I saw. And I thought to myself the same thing, that had I gone that way, I don't know how much further I could have gone. And those who've been, what are your memories of it? Right. And the images that you had there, was anything particularly that you remembered coming back away that stayed in your head? Yeah. The children's shoes, absolutely. I mean, for me, for those, who else, sorry, other people put their hand up. Who else had been? Did anybody else say they'd gone? It was, for those of you who haven't been, there are glass cabinets which are packed with children's shoes, children's toys, hair. The hair was just phenomenal. Just hair, women and children's hair in these cabinets. And these cabinets are the size of this wall, 2 or 3 of these, and it's packed, that size, that height, packed with hair that had been cut off to stuff pillows and duvet covers and things like that. And just seeing shoes and artificial limbs, I mean, those are the images that I came away with. Obviously, we'll come back to that, but I want to move on a little bit. Michael, maybe you can tell us. I've given a brief summary. If you can tell us a little bit more about what you do, please.
One? Yeah. I will not talk about the work. We are here to commemorate something what has been done in the past. It's hard to begin to talk about this because it's attacking my nation. It's attacking Roma, Gypsy, Sinti. It's attacking also Jews, you know. And actually, the first people which has been killed in the Holocaust was the German people, and it was the people which actually didn't agree with the system, with Hitler. Then comes the gays and homosexuals, and then come the rest of the people which evil didn't like it. And he didn't like Jews, he didn't like us. There was the law set up by and by the Reich, which is Nuremberg law, and everything what has been written there means we are not allowed to be alive. Why I survive? Why are Roma survive? Not all of them been killed during the Second World War. Predominantly Slovakian Roma survived because the Slovakia was part of the fascist state, and some of the non-Roma people helped Roma to hide them. That's why my grandmother survived, and I'm here. In terms of Czech Roma have been killed massively. Only 600 people survived after Second World War. In Czech Republic was 2 concentration camps, which is Letie and Hodonín. Both of them are still working. These 2 environment are still working as a factory for pigs, which has been not still set up or recognized as a museum for Holocaust. Only there is 1 stone, but the factory is still working, factory where people have been killed. This is all what I would like to say. For number figures, 500,000 have been killed from Roma, Sinti, Gypsy, 500,000, but some of the people are saying more than that. It can be up to 1.5 million people. And nowadays, in this democracy in 90s, when the communists finish it, when the Iron Wall fall down, neo-Nazis are again in the power. In Czech Republic, during last year, in summer, was every weekend, neo-Nazis marches in front of the doors of Roma people with the where they've been saying, "Gypsy, go to the gas." Imagine how people feel about this. Imagine why people are moving to this country, to United Kingdom. Because of this, if I'm the parent, and if someone will tell my child, because you Gypsy, you go to the gas, in these days, it's very, awful, and it's damaging your personality, your humanity. You have to leave, and government actually don't addressing this. This is now many rhetorics in the European Parliament that the government failing. Also in Slovakia was elected Mr. Kotleba, which is another neo-Nazi in one shire in Slovakia, and we cannot forget about the Jobbik party, which is now in Hungary, which is also in the parliament. The neo-Nazis are again in Europe, in Central Europe. And I think we cannot forget about what happened in Second World War. We have to learn from this, but still this continue. And how it end, how it will be end, it's up to us. It's up to people, it's up to government, it's up to politics to start talking about these neo-Nazis. Thank you.
You say there's discrimination now still. What have you experienced yourself? What are you aware that's still happening?
There are many phases of discrimination, which most of people which are here, they've been faced with discrimination because of your color, because of your religion. The discrimination is also in the United Kingdom. What is dangerous in our country, that the discrimination and racism is open. You can read in the media, you can read in the news, in television, all this, rhetoric against Roma, anti-Roma fears, Romaphobia, all this discrimination, racism continues, and it cannot stop if the government will do the steps.
And you've experienced this personally? Your family experienced this?
The first time when I start, because I was grow up with the non-Roma people up to 20, but in my community, it's traditional you have to get married with another Romani woman. I've been married with the brown, darker skin gypsy woman. And I start to recognize this discrimination through my friends. It was all my non-Roma friends. They start to talk with me in the office, in authorities. This discrimination, I was feeling it. My role in Czech Republic before I moved to the Arby, I was a city police officer, and on my daily basis was by my boss to target Roma Gypsy because they've been stereotype us as we are the problematic people. You have to check all Gypsy or Roma. That's why I moved to here, and all my family are here, and we are lucky. We are happy that we can be part of United Kingdom.
Wow. The reason I asked, because I grew up in a small village in South Wales, and my family was the only Jewish family there. And it wasn't until I moved to London that I had any discrimination against it. And I have 2 children. My little boy, recently in school, there was anti-Semitism. And again, he's the only Jewish child in the school. There was some anti-Semitism against him, some remarks made, something written down. And I went to see the head teacher, and I said, that I wasn't happy with this, as you can imagine. And she said, let me deal with it. I didn't hear anything. I went back 2 days later, and I said, what's the outcome? She said, don't worry, the boy who did it, his name has been written in the naughty book. So that's sorted. If only somebody had done that to Hitler, there would have been no problem at all. I found it. You said you have children.
Yes.
And they've suffered at all, or?
No, my little children has been born here in UK. I believe she will not never suffer. What I, for example, I've been bullied when I was in 2nd class in my country. All of another students are white, and I was only one Gypsy student. And I was bullied. My dad came, argument with the head teacher, but there are another discrimination and racism. That Slovakian, they segregate the schools. Children are sending to special schools because they saying that Roma children have light dimension. They cannot hold the pens. But actually, in UK, the statistics are saying that Roma children, when they are starting the mainstream school, they achieve more. Then you can imagine how what is the difference between UK and Slovakia or Central Europe.
Right, sure. I want to move on. We'll come back to everything. G-Man, as I introduced you also, but can you tell us a little bit more about yourself and what you do, and about Zen?
Microphone check, 1, 2. Sorry. I've lived in Derby all my life. I started off going to a normal school. Well, I thought it was normal, but clearly I had special needs issues. School said I wouldn't really achieve anything. I don't think I failed at school because the school system was bad. I think I failed at school because I wanted to. And how it started, I remember, sorry, Mum and Dad, but I remember I wanted to go to a school with all my mates. It was either Derby School or Littlover School. And, but we lived in an area called Allington. You all know Allington? There you are. Sad, isn't it? Okay. And, but I had to go to Allington School. It was just down the road. And then I vowed never to study again. So if you hear my voice saying that, think of thunder in the background. I vow never to study again, type thing. Okay, be serious. So I deliberately didn't study, got involved in starting a black gang. I think we were the first black gang in Derby. Solid Squad, we were called. SS, it was wonderful. SS, Solid Squad. And then at the age of like 19, I realized to myself that if I continued on the journey I was going on, I'd be dead at 21. Because the truth of the matter is, if you get involved in gangs, the things you do, it escalates. You don't go less, you go up. So I realized that I'm going to have to change my life. So walked into church at 19, and I walked in on Christmas Day. And I remember at the time thinking to myself that I'm not going to survive much in church because I'm a bad lad. I know you find it very hard to believe that this reformed black-haired man with a wonderful beard that Jason did for £25 used to be bad, but that's where I was coming from. And all through my life in growing up, all I wanted to do was to do things that would change the community. And I remember, getting a friend to do this painting for me, and it was CYIA, and it stood for Christian Youth in Action. And my plan was to, rather than complain about what's happening in the news and in the society, etc., we did something about it. So that was my logic. And through the decades, every time I tried to do something, it would get knocked back. And I remember going back, again, 20-odd years ago, 2 groups of prophets. Do you know about prophets in church and stuff like that? Do I need to explain that? Okay. Well, in a nutshell, they can look into your life, and two different groups of people read into my life 20 odd years ago, and they said to me that you are going to be something unique, but not now, but in the future. And whatever you do now will be doomed to failure, DTF, as we used to call it back in the day. And I used to try and do this and try and do that, et cetera, nothing ever happened. And it's only in the last 3 years, I remember walking down the street and getting a text message from a friend of mine saying, give me a ring. And I rang him, and he said to me, because I had this idea for Zen, which you see behind you, but we didn't have, we had a little logo, but we had nothing behind us, just an idea, a concept. And it was about helping people. So my friend texts me and says, give me a ring, and I ring him, and I remember it like it was yesterday. It was October, that's right, it's like yesterday, October the 17th. And what it was, my friend said that his friend had got this McLaren sports car. You know what a McLaren sports car looks like? Amazing car, awesome. I would like one of them, but I don't have the money. And he said it's not fair that he has this wonderful car, and me with all my vision and dreams to help people haven't got anything. So what he did, he decided to give the money that he'd get for the car, that he used to pay for the car, he put it into us. And he started to, you know, it was £1,800 a month, which, if you can imagine, you know, we went from this idea to be able to do something. And that was October, so we launched on November the 30th, rather, 2012. And when we did the launch, we did it here again, and it was Ram. Not that today isn't Ram. And people left and they said, what are you about? We still don't understand. It was a lovely evening, but what was it about? And in a nutshell, what we tried to do from then to now, all we tried to do is do things that benefit the community. Whatever we put on, it costs the community nothing. It's about giving back, and trying to educate as well based on actions as opposed to words. So that's what Zen is all about. And if you're not sure what the words stand for, 30 seconds. If you, again, look in the Bible, Matthew 4, it tells you that the Lord got baptized, and after he got baptized, there's a symbolism of the Father, the Son, and the Holy Ghost. He gets into the wilderness, and he's tempted, etc., etc. He gets word that John the Baptist, who was the person who preceded him, had been imprisoned, which meant that John the Baptist had to decrease and the Lord had to increase. And the Bible tells you that he stood at the banks of where two rivers cross, Zebulun and Naphtali, and to fulfill a prophecy. And so in terms of before he starts his public ministry. So what we've done is just taken the Z of Zebulun and the E, and then the N from Naphtali, and formed it as Zen. Some people think it's Buddhism. No, it's just the two words put together. And what it just means basically is to start. We're here to start to do things to benefit the community, not break the community down or take from the community, but to do something for the community. So that's what we are about. And
you and the number of people, the members, if you like, that you have, what type of figures do you have now, people that are coming along?
Okay, we must have, in terms of volunteers, we must have 20-ish volunteers, and you can tell who the volunteers are because they're either wearing black and white, shirt and tie for the blokes, and the women wear black and white as well. And it's, some have, asked the question, because I wear this wonderful kind of badge on my arm, are we some sort of paramilitary organization? No, we're not. That's you? No, we're not a paramilitary organization. We're just organized, and the stripes just kind of showcase the fact that we're organized. And everything we do, it's coordinated. It's not, we don't believe in luck, we don't believe in coincidences, we believe in coordinated instances. So everything we do is strategic. It's about doing things that affect the community, but in a positive. Because 9 times out of 10, we get our teaching from the TV, but the same TVs, the same programs, and the same makers that put us down for the last 20, 30, 40 plus years. So we're trying to re-educate.
And what type of events do you put on, and what type of people turn up for these events?
Okay, we do, we used to do we still do, an evening with. So we'll get an inspirational person in. For example, we had a lady called Jasvinda Sangera, who started Karma Nirvana. which is a refuge and it's a support organization for women who are suffering under the honor situation in their culture. So we had her on, and she talked about her books and about her life story and what she's gone through. Then we'll also have people who have done extraordinary things. We had a guy called Dwayne Fields, who was the first black man to walk to the North Pole and also the South Pole. So we'll have him in here and we'll talk about it. We also had a clothing designer or a bag designer called Jazz Sembi from London. And they'll talk about their life and how they've overcome. Then also what we do as well, we'll put on, we put on a coach trip. In Derby, there was a lady called Mrs. Cameron, and she used to organize trips every summer for kids who had no money. And parents who had no money. So we'd go on these trips. Now, when she died about 20 odd years ago, the trip stopped. You had to go and you had to pay for these trips. So we organized a trip amongst ourselves to Scarborough. We got one of the supermarkets to actually provide the packed lunches for everybody. And everybody came along. It was 50 seats, all free, for the community to give it back to them, you see. So that's the kind of things that we're doing.
And the people that go, is it a wide range across the community?
Yes. The thing we try not to do, we try not to discriminate in any shape or form. So it doesn't matter if you have money or don't have money. It doesn't matter if you're black or you're not black. It doesn't matter. It's just the fact we want communities to get together. And communities are made up of people from all walks of life, broke and rich. And we want them all to get on. And that's what it's all about for us, you see. So that's what we do. The next thing we're going to launch is what we call Zen TV. It's going to be an internet-based show, which will be from my living room, which will be like the Kumars. So you imagine to yourself, but it'll be live. And we will discuss things in the news. And we'll all do, Skype interviews with people who are far away, whatever. And it's broadcasted live to an audience that can access us via the internet. So that's what we're trying to do.
And before I move on,
sure.
Any of the original gang members that you were with, are they part of it now, or have you lost contact?
I've lost contact with a lot of the people. The friends that I've got around today, I can only describe them as the truest friends you could ever have. I know I don't tire of telling this story. I think it was year 2000, 2001. I saw this amazing scheme which I believed would help to finance, Zen. So I put my money into this amazing scheme, and 70 to 80,000 pounds later, I discovered that I'd been duped. And I discovered also that the gas in the ovens that you have at your yard can't kill you. And what I also discovered was that my friends, were the best friends imaginable, because they all rallied round, opened up a bank account for me, and from their own pockets paid into this account so I could pay the money off that I owed. So some of those people are still with me today. I won't embarrass them by mentioning their names here today. But there's, some of them sold their houses and gave me thousands, Maccabee at the back, and they're still with me today. All the people who are part of Zen are people that, in life, this is my logic. One day, we're all born into this world. The midwife will slap the baby's bottom, and the baby will speak, will cry, will make some communication. And that is the clock ticking down. From the minute the baby's born, the baby's going to die. And I think to myself, what everybody should consider is your death, because very few people truly live. And my logic is this: I don't want the co-op to bury me when I die. I don't want people in top hat and tails. I want my friends, just like in the film Gladiator. You've seen Gladiator? Yeah? At the end of Gladiator, they're all carrying Russell Crowe over their heads. Now, that means that he was a man that was respected. Now, they stepped over the emperor's body to get to Russell Crowe's body and carry him. And what I want is ultimately to leave such an impression on life. I don't want a statue. I just want to motivate people to realize that heaven is here. And it's all you know, so make the world a better place. So that's my philosophy, that's my logic, that's the reason why I do what I do.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you, that's lovely. And if we can move on to Marissa, I just want to ask, as I said, I've introduced a little bit, let's just say a little bit more, and also about any discrimination that you might have come up against.
No problem. Just to clarify, Marisa has a presentation ready to go, so whenever the best time for that is,
We can
let
do
us
that
know.
now.
Yeah,
Yes.
I mean, just if you want to do an introduction, we can definitely do that on the board. But if you'd rather Marisa go straight into her response to the photos, we can just do that.
We could do that. That's fine.
Yeah.
Yes,
Okay.
yes,
Thank you. Just
yes,
to
we can do
clarify.
that.
Could you?
Thank
Thank you very much. Just do a check for volume to make sure you guys can hear, if that's all right. Would you like me to turn it up, or is that okay? Oh, Caroline's on the go. Personal technical assistant. Turn it up.
My name is Marisa. I would like a sign on the electric fence with a warning to those who only see my exterior. Listen before it is too late.
I am not a machine. I am not a machine. I am not a machine. You think, because I make sounds like a faulty machine, that I feel like one too. Do not burn my body. I have a heart just as powerful as yours. Do you question your heart? Who has hurt you?
There is no room for me in these bunks. It is not that I am too forgotten to fit in these beds. It is that I have already been removed, as I was the first to go. I was a useless eater. Only those who work should eat. But what is work?
Working sets you free. Is freedom something the worthy worker is never without? He works to tell you he exists. Such a desperate klaxon, swept in silent stairs. What is work, we ask? I think, I write, I watch, and I listen. Do I not work? The world needs our work of watching and listening and thinking from the edge. We can all give if we allow our most vulnerable to be central to planning pace and contact. I watch a boy with no strength staring at the masses of pictures. He is one of too many poems that will not fit on a memorial wall. The invisible thousands in history, just like me, left in the silence of invisibility. Who will ever know they existed with no record or plaque? I would like to dig into our memory of the invisible, silent dead.
But we must be watchful now. Selective termination before birth. Segregation of children in school of those who are not the norm. Assisted suicide of those who feel they are a burden. These also vanish to non-existence. You see me smile to the sound of your trumpets, but inside there is no music left to sing.
Imagine you are the lookout window, looking out on those nearing their death. How do you not shatter like a plea? People like me spend our lives watching, storing frailty like a projector, holding film reels. We see, but the unquestioning bureaucrats shut their eyes, too afraid to let us help them, to look at what their power has become.
How peaceful ghosts feel from outside the fence. The grass is green and good. I think of those like me, their greenery, their goodness. Unseen, ignored, trampled out. Again, the greenery in Birkenau too. How can it be? Such fur in the graying sky, such gentleness in the green grass. There is no way to cover the past, but we can choose to remember.
Well, thank you very much. So. That's very moving. If we, what I wanted to do, because I know you have a lot of your photographs here, I was wondering if, especially the ones that are set up there, I don't know if those are being filmed, I just wanted you, if possible, to talk us through those, as those seem incredibly striking.
Yeah, they are actually started as I walked around, the moratorium, looking at different rooms, looking at the beds, thinking how cramped they would have been, because I know the number of men in each room, well, each cabin was a lot more than what there should have been. Even thinking about the very cold winters, the very hot summers, which of course is often in that part of Europe, the conditions in freezing cold, sweltering hot, the memorial tower, the barbed wire, the electric fencing, watchtowers, like saying it's a peaceful day, but it all just seems so unreal. And saying, like it says, no birds, just... The other thing I learnt as well, dog baiting, one of the killings, I didn't realise that. To be honest, I thought most people were either gassed or burnt. I think a lot of people were hung, a lot were drowned. Because even the dog baiting, some nice houses across the road, I heard dog bark, the wind carried it, it made me jump because I thought the dog was there coming for me. So all these sort of things... I never said, I just thought of gassing and burning at concentration camps, not knowing about so many other methods. And one of the interesting was, there's 25 different nationalities were killed there. Most of the nationalities, didn't surprise me, the one that did was Chinese. I'll never be able to find out why there were Chinese there. That did surprise me. In the Far East, I would have been surprised, but not in Europe. And you see all the shoes as well as saying that was... just a sort of bewildering head scratching, like what people saying as well, like children's shoes, all different sizes. You know, over 800,000 pairs of shoes, it's a lot of shoes when you think about it. And also, when you because I'm not sure if you say Majdanek or Majdanek, most people I speak to never heard of it, and yet it's the second largest concentration camp. So why it's not so well known, I don't know. Well, the other thing as well, when you were saying about going, can you remember a record by Star Council, Shout to the Top? Yeah. The B-side. You ever listen to the B-side? Coast of Dachau. I remember an interview with Paul Weller. He went round with his manager, because, you know, Dachau is just outside Munich. And they went round in total silence. And I always remember an interview, and that was one of the reasons for him to go to one. But I've never heard of records before or since written about concentration camp either, because on the label it actually says what Dachau was about. Right. So that was another incentive for me to go as well.
Wow. I do know, and I was speaking to friends of mine, and I think this is quite important, even though it would be upsetting. I think when children are of a certain age, maybe 15, 16. I think it would be so important if they were taken there on trips, just to see it, or at least I know that they are taught a little bit in schools nowadays, although there is now talk about taking it off the syllabus, which I just find shocking. It's not been confirmed that that's what they're doing, but I was speaking to a secondary school teacher who said that they are looking to removing it from the syllabus. I don't know why. I do want to look into it. But I think it is something that's important. There are two things I've always thought children of that age should see. They should see a concentration camp and they should see a jail. I think those two things, just the images that you'll have, just, you know, even if a percentage have a reaction to it that would stop them from taking a path they might have taken, is a good enough reason to do it. You're talking about political parties, Michael. I don't know if anybody heard what the UKIP candidate said about Auschwitz. I know we're not here on a political thing, but it was just her views on the Holocaust, when she said that the Jews had done it to themselves so they could get the state of Israel. Yeah, I mean, she was interviewed. This was in the press. This was televised. Yeah, as I said, we're not here to have a... But that was one thing that... what I was quite pleased was that I saw the reaction to it, which was an incredibly negative reaction, which at least, you know, there was that aspect. But this is somebody who's standing as a candidate for a political party. You know, I mean, yes, we all know, you know, we're not going to discuss UKIP, and obviously, you know, it's raining outside because some people are gay. But the fact that she said that, the fact that, you know, the Jews had done it to each other just so they get a state of Israel, you know, it makes you wonder how these people have got where they are. You, I believe, had a slideshow, Michael. Did you have a slideshow that you wanted to show?
It's not. We cannot use it because it's not the same format which.
Oh, okay. Was there anybody else? Were there any other slideshows? Or I think what the best thing to do, because just to keep an eye on time-wise, I think at this point, if we can maybe open it up to the floor, if there are questions for people, and then we can move things on from that part. So we can start off with anybody who might have a question. Or not. I mean, there's no rush. Anybody? Nothing? Anybody wants to ask or to check over? Yes, the gentleman at the back. Well, we're talking about the Holocaust as general, and it wasn't, I mean, yes, 6 million Jews were killed, but it wasn't only Jews that were killed there. And obviously this type of thing didn't end when this Holocaust ended. There are other Holocausts that are still going on. I was interviewed on the radio this morning on Radio Derby. Did anybody hear it? Doesn't matter. In that case... In that case, it was brilliant. And one of the things that he asked me, he said to me, how important do you think what you're doing tonight is? And I said, well, I think it's incredibly important. Otherwise, you know, I wouldn't do it. You know, the weather's not very nice because of the gays. So I would have stayed in. I said, it's incredibly important. And I said, and he said, why? And I said, well, mainly because we have to make sure that this doesn't happen again. And he said, oh, do you really think it would happen again? And I said, well, I'd like to think not, but, you know, there is a chance it could. And he went, really? I said, look, if you'd asked people in the 1920s and 1930s if you'd think that it was going to happen, they'd have said, of course not. And look what happened. So I said, you know, how could you possibly say that it wouldn't happen? And I would like to go through the panel and ask if you think something like this could happen again, and what can be done to avoid this type of thing from ever occurring.
I'm not so sure, to be honest with you. I'd like to think it would happen again, because of the way most people are. But you know, as shown with Nazi Germany, you're gonna have to have a few idiots. And you know, when you get a leader who's cloven up with words, and knows how to manipulate people. I mean, everybody knows it. Isn't it said that if a politician wants to get on, the best way to study that or to learn how to manipulate people or get over your point to people is study Hitler. He's a prime example. Isn't it generally said that he's still an expert, a manipulator? I mean, Germany was a civilized country. And yet, because of conditions and obviously the Treaty of Versailles was where Germany's problems then started because of loss of land, the money was worthless, the condition right for a dictator, plus somebody without absolute power, there was no balance and checks like there was in Parliament here. So he liked to think what would happen. The thing I'm not so sure about, I don't think will happen in Europe. I think Europe now is far removed from that. There isn't the aggressive mentality, the problem isn't maybe in the manpower that there used to be, but there is a saying, he who forgets history is doomed to repeat it.
No, absolutely, and again, obviously, I'm talking from my point of view, which is a Jewish point of view, is what happened with a footballer recently and the anti-Semitic gesture he made, which I wasn't aware of, which apparently is quite large in France, and the fact that when it came out, so many people knew. Have most of you seen this? You aware of this gesture he made? Because of this French comedian who is a renowned anti-Semite and who's been banned, but he's had a massive following, and apparently from what I read, the following increased. Initially, he used to have he was a double act, part of a double act, working with a Jewish comedian. They fell out, so he suddenly went on a different tact and started this sort of right-wing, this anti-Semitic act. And when he started doing that, that's when he suddenly got more of a following. And you know what happened with the synagogue in France, with the Jewish school in France, and the anti-Semitism. So this is, when you say, I don't think it'll happen in Europe, my fear is knowing the increase of anti-Semitism that is happening in Europe at the moment. That's where I worry that, you know, it's just these little bits that's a starting point. People look for a scapegoat. To me, that's what people look for, and they will look for the easiest scapegoat. Can I ask you your opinion, Michael?
I would like just to edit, when you talk about the UKIP, I would like to edit that French Prime Minister, also when he evicted Romanian Roma, he also said that Hitler didn't kill all of Roma, and he should do it. The Deputy Prime Minister is now not in the post anymore. But you see how the French people, you know, are thinking about the Roma Gypsy. Also, there are many evictions now with Romanian Roma from French. Back to the point of the Holocaust, also Bosnian, we forgot still Bosnia and Herzegovina, which has been killed in 90s, which is how many years, 20, 25 years ago, and Bosnian being also people being killed in new days, people being killed because of the differences. How to avoid this thing? I would like to believe that we can avoid, but my fears are very strong because the neo-Nazis are now, you know, in the power because the economic crisis in Central Europe. In Hungary, we have still the Jobbik. I have the fears that it might come again and begin again. Not like what Hitler did, but it can be different ways because we have now new modern technology. How to also avoid it, we have to educate more our children. How you said, it would be great that they will participate in some events in Auschwitz to go and see. But it should be different. I don't know if it's in curriculum in the schools, but it should be, and Roma, Gypsy should be also part of it. All people which has been killed in Holocaust, to commemorate and to recognize this horrible thing which has been done.
Thank you, I agree. If I can ask you the same question.
The funny thing is, the difficulty I've got in my head is trying to answer it very quickly. Do I think it could happen again? I remember watching a few days ago, Bill Gates was on telly, you know, the Microsoft man. And before I mention that, Malcolm X said, only a fool gets his enemy to teach his children. We all put the telly on and we believe what we see on telly, like it's the gospel. Bill Gates was on telly and he was explaining about how he wants to bring in this new program of medication in developing nations. He didn't call it developing nation. I think they call it third world, you know, which if you listen to the language, third world, where's the first world? Where's the second world? It means that it's a gap that's unbridgeable. So that's what he wants to do. But how does he want to do this? If you go on the internet, there's a thing called the Georgia Guidestones, and on it they say these people have said they want to bring the world's population down from 7 billion to 500 million. And it's well documented. Bill Gates has said the same thing. He wants to bring the world's population down. Now, how do you bring it down? And he's talking about medication. Dump it on Africa, the developing nations, etc. So the question is, do I believe, the question was, do I believe or do I think that the Holocaust could happen again? I can see a greater one happening because of the ignorance of people. You know, I won't go into detail, bless. I wouldn't be able to answer the footballing question that you mentioned, but I do feel I have to defend him because Anelka was doing this action. It's not anti-Semitic, right? Even though the media tells you that. There's some top French religious leader, I think he's a religious Jewish leader, he said it isn't anti-Semitic. The media is trying to get everyone to think it is, so they can hang this man out to dry. You know, but what we've got to try and do is understand the issues. Once you understand the issue, he's not anti-Semitic. What he said he is that he's anti-Zionist. Now, people think that Zionism and the Jews are the same thing. I remember being on Radio Derby in 1993, 94, that sort of period of time, and Yitzhak Rabin had been killed, the Jewish leader. And at the time, I was saying it was a terrible thing, and my words were stumbling. And I couldn't understand why it wasn't clear. And then I discovered later on that he was the Jewish leader, yes, but he was a non-believing Jew. He wasn't a practicing Jew. He was a Zionist. Now, that's, for those who don't understand the difference, is that he wanted world domination, world control, etc., etc. Now, the salute by Anelka, the Quinnell, it's anti the establishment. It's not anti the Jews. Some people have done it outside synagogues, but that's not the symbol. You know, it's not anti-Semitic. People have adopted it because they're ignorant, but that wasn't his reason. So, do I believe that? You know, is it going to happen again? I would put money on it because of the lack of education amongst people in general. They don't really understand how the media works. Tony Blair works for an organization. He left Britain. He was for those who don't know, check it out yourself. He is the first British Prime Minister in the history of this country to change from being Protestant to Roman Catholic. The first ever. You need to understand why he did that. He's now the head of an organization or the representative of an organization called the Quartet. Now you need to understand what that organization is all about. And once you start to piece things together, the question is not so much will this happen again, but more when. Because they've got plans in place and steps in place, and we're blind because we're not actually seeing what they're trying to do. And that's my fear, that they're doing what they're doing and we're becoming frogs, in that we are sitting in this pool of water, it's being heated up, and we're just going, this water is lovely, but not realizing to the fact that we're dying in this water. And once you start to examine the news and check out what they really aren't saying, you will see what I'm saying is logical. But that's my view.
Thank you. Thank you for the answer. There are a couple of points I'm going to have to pick you up on.
Feel free.
First of all, you said Yitzhak Rabin, when
Yes.
he died, he wasn't the Jewish leader.
Yeah.
He was the Israeli prime minister.
No. I said he wasn't a believing. He was a Jewish leader. He was the prime minister of the nation, but he wasn't a Jew. He wasn't a believing Jew.
He was the Israeli prime minister.
Yes.
And I get this a lot where people say, because I'm Jewish, therefore I'm Israeli. And there's always, especially after gigs, I have that quite a lot. And obviously, it's not the same thing. But the other thing, you said that there was a Jewish leader who said that this sign that
Yes.
Anelka did wasn't so where was this?
This was last week. Anelka, if you go on Anelka's website, he gets the name of the person who said it. It's a French Jewish leader. And he actually said that it isn't anti-Semitic. He actually said that.
I mean, neither of us know the truth. And, you know, you're saying, you know, you shouldn't look at the media for answers, yet the media is the one that's giving the name of this person. We don't know. From my point of view, if I'm friendly with somebody, I will know their views. If I've got a friend who's a racist, I wouldn't have a friend who's a racist. But if I did have a friend who's a racist, I would know their views, and it would be my decision if I were to be friendly with that person. So the fact that he's saying it was anti-establishment, personally, I think it's a way of trying to get out of it. You know, his close friend who he was winning on national television to make a sign for is an anti-Semite. I find it very difficult to believe that he would say, well, I didn't know that at all. That's not, you know, nothing to do with me. We don't, at this point, we don't know. He's been found, well, as far as I'm aware, he's been found guilty of it. He's not...
Sorry, the friend has been found guilty. Yeah.
But the comedian...
the footballer hasn't.
No, well, he's being banned. I mean, apparently banned.
Not yet, no. It's, they've charged him, but they're now giving him a chance, and they're going to present their case against him. He had the chance to leave the country and play for Lazio, but he turned it down and said, I want to stay in this country. I've done nothing wrong, and I want to stay here and defend my name. That's what he said.
Well, I don't think he should be forced to leave. I don't think he should have to leave. I think it's more a case of if that is something that he's done and realizes it's something incorrect, then something perhaps it should be apologized for and been given a chance to rectify it. But also the fact that it is so widely used in France and Belgium and other parts as that sign, I do find it difficult to...
Okay, I'll give you a classic example. Sorry. I'll give you a classic example. There's a scripture in the Bible where it says that when men shall say peace and safety, that's when sudden destruction will come. Right? So it's saying in the sign of peace, that's when you're going to have war. Okay? I can give you two signs that are signs of peace, but are in fact used for war. Like, for example, you've got the Nazi sign, the swastika. Yeah, and is it part of the Asian culture? But it means, you see. Then you've also got, right, the one that's used in this country called CND, Campaign for Nuclear Disarmament. Wonderful sign, looks amazing. But if you're a Satanist, the thing that you do, you get the crucifix, you break the arms, and you turn it upside down. It's the same symbol. So what I'm saying, you see, is that because others have adopted the sign, doesn't mean that the person who used it, i.e. Anelka, doesn't mean that he is racist. It doesn't mean that he is anti-Semitic. I believe him because all I'm hearing is the media saying all these things. But because I've read it and I've listened to the French comedian's comments, I've listened to the things that he said which are anti-Semitic, which he has, but I don't think the sign that Anelka used and the sign that this man has developed, I don't believe it's anti-Semitic. I understand that it's anti-establishment and has been hijacked and adopted by other people, but I don't believe that is anti-Semitic. If it was, I'd be the first person I've nothing to do with it, because, like I said, I'm a Christian. A Christian, if you understand anything about religion, it's the branches. The trunk is Judaism. You can't dismiss Judaism and expect to be a Christian, because no branch stands by itself. Impossible. So I've been to Israel, I follow the whole teachings. But to me, listening to Anelka and listening to, even a few days ago, the French comedian tried to defend himself, I don't think people want to hear the defense. I think they want to hang him. It reminds me of 20-odd years ago when Britain was at war against the Argentinians. Now, go back a few years before that, in 1978, we had the World Cup. Argentina won the World Cup. Tottenham bought two Argentinian players. They were the flavor, top of the pops, singing away, no problem. War breaks out. Ardiles has to go to Paris because he can't play in this country because of the religious and the hatred against this man. So ignorance has always been the thing that's fueled most people. What I'd like to see people do is actually understand the issue before they actually say, I think this is the case or that's the case. It happened a few years ago with Suarez. Everyone turned around and said that the Liverpool player Suarez was racist, and he used racist terminology. He used the word negrito, which is an insignificant word. But the whole thing was assessed by people that weren't black. And all I'm saying is that if they're going to do a judgment, we should be in the room too. And then we'll see if we come to the same conclusion that we have come to.
What's your opinion on the use of the word Yid in the same context by the Tottenham supporters?
Yes, you see, I know that I know it's a word that was used back in the day as an offensive word. The Tottenham supporters they are saying, if you try to force us from not using this word, we're going to use it even more. It's similar to the word that is in the black community, the N-word. Now, people say it's about reclaiming the word. If anybody tried to reclaim the word with me, I'd be offended because it's unreclaimable. It's like saying, marrying somebody who, I used to be a pimp, and then my cool name is going to be Pimp G. Never. Because it's the connotations for me, I wouldn't accept it. So, the Tottenham fans who still want to use that word, it's, to me, the same level of ignorance that the black people who use the N-word. It's the same stupidity. And, the problem you've got is you've got idiots ruling the world and ignorance ruling the world. And what we need is people to understand why we do whatever we do. Why do we actually choose, when the Second War broke out, Britain didn't get involved in the war because they saw what was happening to the Jews and the other people in the concentration camps. They did it for their own agenda. And Britain had a deal with Nazi Germany, with the royal family. What I'm saying is we have to understand our history. Go back to the First World War. Anybody with a German name was hung in the streets. So the British royal family changed their name from Saxe-Coburn to Windsor overnight. And nobody questioned it. Nobody said why. And what we need to do is understand the history, understand why people do what they do, and people will kill other people en masse because they think they are inferior. And if you get any race above another race, having the power to put another race down, it will repeat, and it will repeat.
Thank you. I don't know if I can ask Marisa to answer the question. Thank you.
For me, it's about fear of what we don't understand. We all have beauty, but some see only the exterior and are scared of it, and so from that fear comes a dangerous power, and I see it in the way young people who are not given the opportunity to meet and be around people like me in school. They become scared, and that can lead to horrible assumptions and then isolation. I try hard to believe simply the image of a young non-disabled person taking my hand and talking to me is a start to break away from this fear that makes us lash out and I truly feel the world needs to be reminded, even the most seemingly ugly have such a beauty somewhere inside them.
Thank you, Marisa. Ladies and gentlemen, we've only got a couple of minutes left. That's gone fast. I can take maybe one more question if anybody has anything before we wrap anything up. Is anybody else?
You mentioned that the teachings of the Holocaust may be taken off the syllabus. Why do you think that is?
I don't know. This is something that I was told that they're looking to move things around. Are there any teachers in? Are there any? This is what I've been told, that it's slowly fading. I know that my son is in year 6, and this is the last year 6, so they're talking about the Second World War. So why it's being taken away, I don't know. If they're going to find a different way of doing it, I don't know. But I was quite surprised to find out about it, and I want to look into it a little bit more, because it's important. Any other questions?
I know in the senior school, still teaching the War and still doing the Holocaust and still doing Holocaust Memorial Day for our school does anyway.
And they'll be carrying on?
And they're carrying on. There's no signs of it coming up out of our
maybe it's the primary schools then that's doing
at this
it.
stage, we've got no signs of it, but we still teach it in school. We've been commemorating it in our school.
Right.
Over the last beginning of this week.
Good. Okay, thank you for clarifying. Yes.
I visited Hiroshima and Nagasaki a couple of years ago, and when I visited the memorial museums there, what struck me was that there were school groups who visited there, and I think as part of Japanese curriculum you have to go at some stage before the age of leaving school, they go there, and I think that's really important that children, exactly as you said, I think a jail and a memorial in terms of the Holocaust, or in terms of death council, or in terms of what happens in Japan, I think it's important that children go, and I think it's also important in terms of looking at you, Tom, that people travel, because without travelling you never find out about these things in depth or see it in colour. So for me it was about selecting these photos and understanding that the book's on the table, it's all in black and white, but to see it in colour, that brings it to your heart and makes you feel, wow, this cannot happen again, and hopefully I won't, produce children who will want to make that happen again.
Yeah, and do you know the funny thing is, I spent 8 days in Poland, and every day was really, really nice. The one day I went to Auschwitz, rained. it was, in a way, it was almost fitting. It was cold, it was wet, it was miserable. I suppose even the most optimistic people, as you arrive there, that's how you feel. So it was sort of... Another funny thing is as well that I'd say to anybody who's thinking of going, if you can, because if I'm not mistaken, Auschwitz is a German name. I think the Polish name is something like Auschwitz. If you can... Sorry? Is that it? Sorry, yeah, I wasn't sure of the pronunciation. If you can, stay as near as you can to the camps and allow yourself 2 days. You need the day for the camp. Because I didn't realise it is Auschwitz, the museum, that's Auschwitz 1, and Auschwitz-Birkenau 2, which is a camp. So you really need 2 full days because there is so much to take in. I saw a little bit of the museum because I went to Birkenau 2 first, about 2 miles apart. But you really do need 2 full days, I would say, to really take it all in. And the other interesting, like Majdanek, when you walk down to Auschwitz-Birkenau 2, you've got these beautiful detached chalet houses, and all of a sudden you walk past them, there's a camp. So these people every day look out the window, that's what they see. Just an interesting contrast.
Yes. Just to go back off what B was talking about, Hiroshima and Nagasaki. I remember when I was a kid, I used to think to myself that Nagasaki was a wrestler on telly. And that's as far as it went. And then I started to hear a little bit more about what had happened. But before I mention what I'm going to mention, I remember in 2011, September the 11th, was it September the 9th? 9/11? Yeah, that's right. And I remember when they said the Twin Towers went down, which it did go down. A couple more towers went as well. And they blamed it on a certain group of people, right? Immediately you knew within a couple of hours the name of the leader, the name of the organization, etc. And I remember, you know, thinking to myself at the time, I've lived in this country all my life, and I don't remember them ever telling you on telly the name of the leader of the IRA, right? I'm not talking about Sinn Féin, I'm talking about the IRA. But they knew immediately who had done this World Trade Center bombing. And 10,000 people, I think, died altogether. It was terrible. Or 5,000, I'm not sure. And it was terrible, terrible, terrible. But what about the people who dropped the bombs on Hiroshima and Nagasaki? They didn't target, you know, weapons, or they didn't target soldiers. They targeted civilians. And you're talking about hundreds of thousands died overnight like that. And we never questioned the people who did that. We just watched the news and went, it happened, and we remember it, but we don't actually question. That's why these things will happen again, because we don't actually ask the right questions. We just be fed. We believe that McDonald's is a restaurant. Take your girlfriend there for the first date, see if you have the second one. But we don't question things, and that's why I think the problem is, ask questions. Children, what the beauty about children is they're inquisitive. Mummy, what's that? Daddy, what's that? And they don't stop. We beat it out of them. Stop asking me questions. But we should encourage them to grow up, to keep asking questions, so that the world can be theirs. Because it's their world. If they're taking the stuff out of the schools, we should tell them they can't. Because it's our school. We put them in power. And we go, well, what can you do? Tell them they can't do that. That's just my logic.
Thank you. Kendo Nagasaki wore a mask. Brilliant, brilliant
Yes,
wrestler. Yes, he did.
Yeah.
Great wrestler. We've got one final question before we finish.
Can I just say, on the back of what G-Man was saying, we do need to educate our children, because the Manic Street Preachers sang a song that says, if we tolerate this, then our children will be next. And if we don't educate them, because what they've got is people like your Jay-Z's, your Beyonce's, your Rihanna's, making signs and gestures, and our young people are picking up on this. So if we don't educate them, then that's the way it's going to go. And that's how it just continues to get bigger and bigger.
Absolutely. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you ever so much for coming. Please put your hands together for all our panelists this evening. And I'll hand you back to Bea to say farewell.
Thank you very much for coming. I hope that you have felt that you were able to share and learn some things. For me, it was definitely about having you here. So I'm really, really pleased that you can come and share in this evening and learn more about the people that the Nazis were trying to get rid of in terms of representation of people on this panel. This is what is real. And hopefully we can pass the message on and say never again. Time for food and chat, and also to be able to fill in the forms as well, please, and give them to Kaz so that we can basically document and have that evidence to say why we don't want this to happen never again. Thank you very much for coming.